For decades, Pastor Shirley Caesar was the radiant voice of gospel music, the woman who could lift a congregation to its feet with a single note. But behind her joy, her laughter, and her unshakable faith lies a story filled with heartbreak, betrayal, and loss that few ever truly knew. This is the tragedy of Pastor Shirley Caesar. Shirley Caesar was born on October 13, 1938, in Durham, North Carolina, the 10th of 13 children in a home where love was abundant but money was scarce. Her father, James Caesar, was a hard-working man who sang in a gospel quartet called the Just Come For, but no matter how hard he worked, there was never enough to go around. Her mother, Hallie, was partially disabled, yet somehow managed to keep the family fed and together. Shirley learned early that survival wasn't about comfort, it was about courage and faith. When Shirley was just 7, tragedy struck. Her father suddenly collapsed from a brain seizure and never recovered. That moment shattered her childhood. With no source of income and a house full of mouths to feed, Shirley stepped up in a way no child should ever have to. She began singing in churches to bring money home. At 7 years old, her voice became her lifeline and her family's. By the time she was 10, that little girl with the big voice was already known across North Carolina as Baby Shirley. People would weep when they heard her sing. But even as her talent grew, her burdens did too. Her mother's health kept failing, and Shirley became her full-time caregiver at just 12. She'd sing in churches by night, and by day she'd help her mother walk, cook, and care for the house. It was a childhood stolen by necessity, but it forged in her an unbreakable spirit. In college, while studying business, Shirley heard a voice, literally. During a typing test, she said she heard God call her by name. The voice told her she was chosen to preach the gospel. That moment changed everything. She dropped out of college and began her journey into full-time ministry and gospel music. In 1958, she joined one of the biggest gospel groups of the time, the Caravans, and her career took off like wildfire. But the road wasn't easy. Traveling through the Jim Crow South meant facing racism, segregation, and constant danger. Some nights, she had to sleep on buses because hotels refused her entry. Yet even through the hate and hardship, she kept singing. Her songs weren't just melodies. They were messages of hope for people who had nothing else to hold on to. After years of touring and being underpaid, Shirley made the bold move to go solo in 1966. Everyone told her she'd fail without the Caravans, but they were wrong. Her voice, fiery, soulful, and honest, broke through every wall gospel music had. She sang about poverty, loss, and faith in a way that was raw and real. And that authenticity earned her a following unlike any other. In the 1970s, Shirley's fame exploded. She was winning awards, performing on television, and touring the world. She sang for presidents and packed churches from Chicago to West Africa. But while her career soared, she stayed grounded in service. She gave away half her earnings to feed the poor, shelter the homeless, and support those in need. By the time she was in her 40s, she had built not just a career, but a ministry that touched millions. Then, in 1983, Shirley married Bishop Harold Ivory Williams, the man she called the love of her life. Together, they pastored a thriving church in Raleigh and worked side by side for over 30 years. It seemed like she had finally found peace.
But that peace didn't last.
On July 4th, 2014, while the rest of the country celebrated Independence Day, Shirley's world fell apart. Her husband of 31 years passed away at the age of 93. The man who had stood beside her in faith, music, and love was suddenly gone. Thousands came to the funeral, but when the crowd went home, the silence in her house was unbearable. She once said that after his death, the hardest sound in the world was the sound of nothing. Then came the second heartbreak. Not long after her husband's passing, Shirley found herself in a painful battle with her stepchildren over his estate. The very people she had helped raise, the ones she called her miracle children, turned against her in a bitter legal fight over money and property. For a woman who had given away most of what she earned to others, being accused of greed by her own family was devastating. And this wasn't the first time family pain found her. When her beloved mother passed away in the late 1980s, Shirley faced accusations from her own siblings, claims that she'd used their mother's story for fame. She denied it, heartbroken, but the wounds never healed. Today, she's the only one of her 13 siblings still alive. Imagine that, outliving your entire family. But her private pain didn't stop there. For years, Shirley carried another silent sorrow. She was never able to have biological children. She tried everything: prayer, doctors, treatments. Nothing worked. She eventually opened up about her infertility, admitting it made her question her faith at times. She poured that pain into her ministry, creating programs for couples struggling with the same heartbreak. She once said, "God didn't give me children of my own, but He gave me the world to love." Even in her later years, when she should have been celebrated in peace, the world wouldn't leave her alone. Fake news stories began circulating online claiming she had died. Others said she was battling throat cancer or had collapsed on stage. These cruel rumors spread so far that she had to post videos herself just to prove she was still alive. "Unless I'm a living dead person," she said, "I don't know anything about it." Her grace under pressure only showed how strong she still was, but deep down, it hurt to see her legacy twisted for clicks. Then came the false financial accusations, the fake will, and even a man claiming to be her secret son. One by one, she had to fight these lies just to protect her name. For a woman who had given away nearly 75% of her income to help others, being portrayed as deceitful was heartbreaking. But Shirley Caesar never stopped showing up. She never stopped preaching. Today, at 86 years old, Pastor Shirley Caesar still stands tall at the pulpit of Mount Calvary Word of Faith Church in Raleigh, North Carolina. Her voice may not soar quite as high as it once did, but her spirit remains unshaken. She has mentored countless gospel artists like Kirk and Yolanda Adams, teaching them not just how to sing, but how to stand firm in faith when the world turns against you. She could have been worth tens of millions more, but money was never her goal. Her wealth has always been her faith, her music, and the people she's helped. Through every betrayal, every rumor, and every heartbreak, she's held on to the same belief she's preached since she was 7 years old, that no matter what life takes away, God still works it out for good. So when people talk about Shirley Caesar, they don't just talk about a gospel legend. They talk about a woman who lived through poverty, racism, loss, betrayal, and grief, and still kept singing. Her greatest tragedy was losing the people she loved, but her greatest victory was never losing herself.